on, my socks are off. I'm flying through the hallway like a disco moth. Hitching to the couch, then I loop through the fan. My tiny whoop's grooving like a funky jam. I dip through the doorway, spin by the cab, bounce off the toaster, yeah, I'm meant to do that. Neighbors knocking, saying, what's that sound? It's my brush motor soul train getting down. Flying through the curtain, dancing on breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic, bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight, can't stop it all. I got LED strobes and a shag rug trail. I'm looping through the lava lamp, leaving a tail. My whoop's got rhythm, my stick's got soul. I'm the pilot of the party. On a roll, TV remote's a gate, the lamps a dive. I'm flying like it's 7.5. No GPS, no rules, no shame. Just a funky little quad and a soul train frame. We fly that flow, grab that gap. No time to nap, no time to nap. Hit that roll, funk and control, bounce that wall, we fly it all, we fly it all. Tiny whoop love, funky and free. We fly indoors, we fly with glee. Whoop it, loop it, groove it, move it, bounce it, flip it, funk it, rip it, fly that soul, don't lose control. Tiny whoop love gonna make you whole. I thread the needle through the vinyl stacks, bounce off the mirror ball, never looking back. My quad's got soul, it's got style, it's got sass. It dips through the incense like a blast from the past. I'm flying figure eights through the lava lamp glow, dodging house plants like a funky pro. My whoop's got rhythm, my sticks got heat. I'm the pilot of the party with the grooviest beat. I loop through the hallway, I dive by the broom. I'm the disco ghost in your living room. I hit that split that's over grandma's chair. She just claps and says, boy, you got flair. I'm flying freestyle with a velvet touch. My quad so smooth it don't need a clutch. From the shag rug to the ceiling fan, I'm the funky little fly with a master plan. The curtains dancing on the breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight, can't stop at all. Can't stop at all. Can't stop at all.
What's up, friends? My name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. Welcome to Sunday Q&A. Nope, it's Monday. Monday Q&A. The voice of God is here, Kevin Sumner.
What's up, people?
We are going to be looking at old-ass frames tonight. You were just watching... Where did it go? I put it right here. You were just watching some flight footage from my frame that still doesn't have a name, but I've finally managed to break an arm on. So I now do finally feel like the testing of the frame is done. It broke pretty much exactly where it should have. I do need to talk to the main designer of this to just kind of run this by him and show him some of the other stress fractures to see if it kind of makes sense to beef anything up. I feel like the geometry is good to go. We're just going to make the top plate 0.5 mil thicker. I think at the moment the top plate is, I think it's 1.5 millimeters thick. It needs to go to 2. If it's 2, it's going to 2.5. Other than that, I think it's good to go. The setup that you were just watching is HD0 Gamma AIO into an 04 Lite, which I have in these really cool Flywoo brackets. And the bracket has bayonet mount tabs on the front so that you can use the Flywoo ND filters. And the bayonet mount setup is strong enough that the filters don't just eject every single time you crash, which is really, really nice. And it uses the regular old 04 Lite camera, which I know that the more narrow field of view bugs some people. If that's you, give it a chance. I'm as guilty of this as anybody. When I see somebody on the internet that seems to maybe know what they're talking about, or just in general, someone on the internet, say that something sucks, it gives me this preconceived notion that that thing sucks. And then sometimes when I try that thing, I don't actually give it a chance. That might be happening to you with the 04 Lite regular camera. Take a step back, give it another try, because boy, is it nice to use this with the bayonet mount. It's super lightweight. You don't have the giant Flywoo wide angle camera. You're not forced, it's a lot easier to find the regular old 04 Lights than the wide angle setups. Although now DJI has their own wide angle setup that of course doesn't work with the Flywoo filters, but it works close enough if you use like the little hot glue stick and a lighter trick to hold the ND filter in there. Basically, you take a hot glue stick and a lighter. You get the tip of the hot glue stick hot, molten, 10 seconds, and then you just push it in between the ND filter and the housing, and stick it there for like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and then remove it and kind of go like this if there's still a little bit of molten hot glue, and now you've got a little hot glue connection that in the next 10 seconds will dry and keeps that lens on. If you need to get it off, you just use your fingernail, pop that little blob of hot glue off, and away you go. But yeah, this little setup is awesome. It's small. You can fit this into most frames. This is 14 mil, I want to say. Pretty sure this is 14 mil. Let's double check. No, it's actually 19. This guy is 19 millimeters outside to outside, which fits in most. Okay, that's not going well. It fits in most frames. Jesus, what a mess that just made. And yeah, away you go. Super lightweight. Hold your ND filter. The reason why the ND filter is so important is these little tiny cameras suffer from jello pretty bad, especially when you're flying them in the middle of the day where the sun is very bright. Typically, you're going to see the shutter speeds go up to like 1/500th of a second, 1/640th of a second. And up that high with an action camera that works off of a rolling shutter, you're just going to get jello. It's just going to be the way it is. And jello doesn't come out with gyroflow. It can like kind of smooth it out a little bit, but like real wavy line jello, like that's in there forever. And so yeah, this kind of camera setup here works really, really well. You get your ND filters on here. Will you be able to get gyroflow to work? Probably not all the time, but I did a ton of testing with hard mounted camera setups and gyroflow with the 04 Lite last month and the month before. And look, you shouldn't be using gyroflow for freestyle. Freestyle is no stabilization. If you're using gyroflow, it's because you flew something more cinematic, and most cinematic stuff you're going to be flying a little bit more slowly, typically below 50% throttle. And with the hard mounted camera setup, and a good fresh set of motors that aren't totally beat to death and a half decent set of propellers, gyroflow actually works really well if you keep below 50% throttle. And so you can do a lot with this kind of setup. Hardcore freestyle into like cinematic-ish stuff. Hell, you could even probably do like long-range-ish things as well. The rest of this setup here that you're watching the intro is a set of these Oddity RC Spinny Boys. Ultra cool, bro. 1405 motors. They're 4800 kV. These are a pretty aggressive motor. You probably don't need this much motor for a build like this. The T motor 1404 4600 is probably better suited for something like this. I am going to try some different motors on here, but I had these motors kicking around, and 1405 4800 kV, that's a lot, and these are a lot. I've been dying to use these to see how nutty that is, and it's pretty nutty. This sized and kV motor is pretty rare. 4800 kV in a 1405 is not very common. The closest, so you have to buy these motors direct from Oddity RC, which is super annoying. You should probably instead just get the RC and Power 1404 Plus, which basically means that it's a 1405. Pretty similar to this. It's not quite 1405, but it's close enough. And I think it's 46 something kV. That motor you can get from like Pyrodrone, and you'll be all set. And makes much more sense than waiting to get these. Also, I maybe had one of these motors die, and take the Tune RC Poly F405 AIO with it. Or maybe the AIO died and ate the motor. There's no way to tell. I've run probably 20 batteries on this setup with the HD0 Gamma, and it's been completely fine. So maybe it was the Tune RC AIO, maybe it was actually the motor. I'm going to keep running this, and we'll see. If another motor goes, then yeah, definitely don't get these Oddity RC motors. To be honest, the RC and Power motors are so close in size and kV that I don't really see any reason to get these motors, if we're being totally honest. At the time of me getting into these motors, that RC and Power motor did not exist, and so there were no like 1405 high kV, right? 4800 is high kV options. And so yeah, that's why I got these motors. But if today I had to make the decision, I would absolutely go with the RC and Power motors. So yeah, that's the setup that you were seeing. For some reason, I was digging around in a bunch of older frames, and I kind of so the story behind this frame is that this was designed many years ago, back in 20 by 20 stack days, when like with like vistas and whatnot, and my frame was designed specifically for 20 by 20 stack with an external analog VTX in the back, an external receiver in the back. That's why it has a little bit of an ass on it in here. That's also why there's carbon fiber going up the middle here, so that you can wrap a zip tie around here to hold down your little communications package in the back, your receiver and your VTX. And then it's got kind of a short nose as well, because analog cameras, small analog cameras. It was also kind of designed, though, to have barely enough room for the RunCam hybrid camera. This is the best analog HD solution. It's got a RunCam Sparrow in the top, I think, and then I want to say 720p HD camera and sensor in the bottom. And so back in the day, this RunCam hybrid was insane, because you got the best HD that we had back then, and then you got a really low latency FPV camera as well. The RunCam Sparrow was like a really good FPV cam back in the days. And so you had low latency from a proper FPV camera, really high dynamic range FPV specific camera, right? Works really well in low light, works really well in shitloads of light. But then you've also got the HD sensor. And so yeah, that analog specifically was what this frame was designed for. Thank God, Ryan Harrell, who did the majority of the design here, thank God he had the common sense to tell me, well, yo, I can just add like 1 gram of carbon fiber and put a 25.5 by 25.5 AIO mount setup in here at a 45-degree diagonal. And I said, cool, because, thank God, because now this is such a cool little build. This was meant for a 20 by 20 stack, separate ESC, separate flight controller. That would take up this full deck height, and then receiver and VTX in the back. 4 or 5 years goes by. Finally, I get one built. And now, like, the meta, you could say, for a lot of these micro builds is an AIO that has ELRS on board, and then an external digital VTX kind of setup. So, like, Walk Snail Light, or now O4 Light, or now O4 Wide as well. This should have enough room in the front for that. And so, yeah, when I dug a bunch of these other older frames out, I realized, like, that setup, like the 25 by 25 with the O4 light on top, will fit in a bunch of these frames. And or I think in some of these frames we also might even be able to get an O4 Pro, namely because the O4 Pro has the double mounting, the 25 by 25 mounting on the outside here, and then the 20 by 20 mounting on the inside here. And then they sell, you can get some really good 20 by 20 AIOs now, where they're just like a regular AIO, but they've just moved the bolt holes in. And so you can do like a 20 by 20 AIO on short screws, and then run those screws right up into the bottom. Well, actually, this would be the top of this. You'd flip this over, and then your stack screws would drive right into this, and this would take the place of like a set of nylock nuts on the top of your stack. And so I think a lot of our older frames that we might just have like sitting on the shelf with like FR Sky in them and analog stuff, and we haven't flown them in a while, like me, like all 4 of these, we can bring these into the modern sort of world with camera systems and ELRS, and start flying them again, because a lot of these old frames are like fine. And here's another thing, right? Like, a lot of these old frames were back in the days of like Betaflight 3.5.7, even back before RPM filtering. And like, yes, frame design has come a long way. These are going to have vibration issues, but our current generation of dynamic filtering and RPM filtering will probably fix most, if not all, of those issues. Kevin Sumner here has, he let me know right before this live stream, he has 5 rip squeaks, and the rip squeak was a frame by BQE that was like the best that there was at the time.
Specifically the V2s. That's the V1 you're holding.
Yeah, so this is the V1, and then the V2 is longer. I can show you from the bottom plate. The V2 is a little bit longer, but the V2 over here, you can kind of see, has the 25 by 25 setup. What was it? That was the real highlight of the V2. Unfortunately, the V2 was not quite as durable. The base plate, the bottom plate here, being really thin, where my index finger is, it would almost always break right here. Whereas the V1 was a lot thicker there. But the V1 doesn't have that 25 by 25 mounting. It's got a kind of cool setup for 20 by 20 mounting, where you can kind of slide it forward and back on these holes here on the outside. And so that's what we would actually want to do. The V1 rip squeak, since it only has 20 by 20 mounting, this is where you would want to do the O4 Pro. You'd flip this upside down, drive the screws into it, and then you would slide the whole 20 by 20 stack back a little bit in these holes on the bottom. And so I have them in the center set of holes. You would slide them back to move this one down to here, and then this one, I would have to take the sticker off, but I'll show you on this side. This one would go there. And so that would give you a little bit more space in the front for the giant O4 camera. The other camera system that a lot of us are flying nowadays, I haven't kept super close track of Walk Snail, but I'm sure that I think a lot of the Walk Snail VTX mounting is 25 by 25. So like the version 1, say again, Kevin?
It's 20 by 20. I have both. The OG VTX is, I think the OG VTX might be 25 by 25, but the The more recent ones, especially the pros, are 20 by 20.
That. Yeah, I remember when they changed the frame.
Actually, I don't know about the big fat you want to record on board ones. Should go look that up real quick. But yeah, a lot of folks moved to 20 by 20 because of wasn't Vista 20 by 20?
Indeed. Yeah, so
it's been 20 by 20 since
DJI
then.
kind of screwed us. The Vista was 20 by 20, and then the 03 they moved to 25 by 25 with these stupid little screws. I think I forget what these are. Are these M1.5? Chat, somebody back me up on the 03. They might not be M1.5.
M1.6 or M1.4 are the two fine thread ones. Okay. So it could be either one of those.
Yeah.
Is it the same size? Is it the same size as 0802 motor screws? Because those, I believe, are M1.4s.
Yeah, that's how I can check. Good call. I'm going to check.
Sorry, M1.6.
I'm going to check that with...
Capital C says 1.8. Sir says 1.6.
Perfect. I'm going to check that with this Fantic electric screwdriver that I'm trying out. There was a mega discount on this for Prime Day that I caught like an hour before the end of Prime Day. And when I start to do a lot of building, this starts to hurt in here, like carpal tunnel-y, just from like twist. This happened a couple weeks ago, pretty bad actually, when I was doing a lot of that prop testing, taking T-mount props off over and over and over again. And so yeah, I did a little bit of research, and apparently this one is one of the better ones, if not the best one. And so I've been messing around with this. Headphone users, or if there are any headphone users in chat, please type the word headphone in the chat. If not, people watching this not live that are wearing headphones, let me know how absolutely, completely, and utterly intolerable this is. Ready?
I'm wearing my studio cans right now, actually. So.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, this is the Fantech. This is not one of like the super fancy ones with like a gyro or anything like that. It's got Tighten and Loosen. Thank God they put these in the right order. The Tighten is the one down. The Loosen is the top one, which works really well. The barrel here, you slide it, and it's supposed to show you the lights. Show me the lights, fella. There it is. So you tighten the top, and as that goes up, the torque that it puts before it stops basically goes up. I've run it on the lowest setting and the highest setting, and it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. It typically doesn't so it just has some sort of a microcontroller on here where like when it senses too much torque, it just cuts the power to the motor basically. A lot of times it doesn't, and it just tightens it up like quite a bit, and then what happens is like I hold it fairly light, and it'll just twist the button right out of my finger, which is fine. It's like totally fine. But like for them to put the like a digital clutch on this thing, I don't know. It doesn't seem to do anything, but it kind of doesn't matter because yeah, just the design of it prevents over tightening, which is really, really cool because I have a nasty tendency to over tighten this stuff so that it doesn't loosen up in the air. So yeah, that's kind of cool. I absolutely love that it has this light on the front here. This is amazing. And then it comes with this case, which is kind of slick because the interior of the case has all the has a million bits, and then this is spring loaded, and then this guy drops down and stays in there pretty good. Like I can certainly get the whole thing to pop out because it's just on magnets, but like this is I didn't think about this from like a traveling perspective, but this would be really cool to like bring to Castle Crash, for example, and then you have all the bits. Previously what I would do is I would just bring my set of MIP drivers. I would just bring a bunch of the hand tools that I have here, just throw them in like a little bag and throw them in my shit. This is pretty slick. I don't know, this is it's a lot. Like it's cool to have all the bits, but I'll never use all these bits. And then ready, so the spring-loaded thing, you push that down, and then it kicks the little driver up. Kind of slick, but like realistically, there's gonna be 4 bits that get used for FPV, right? There's gonna be 1.5, 2, and 3 that are gonna get used, and those are the ones that are missing right now. And then there's going to be a Phillips head driver bit that gets used. The rest of these are never, ever, ever going to get used. And this has some weight to it. Like, having all these bits is kind of heavy, and God forbid I drop this and all these bits eject on the inside of here. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this one. I don't need this many bits, right? I need 4.
Is that the E2 Ultra?
This is the Nex E2 Ultra.
Perfect.
And so, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to keep this. It's interesting. I'm going to keep using it a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. It seems like it might be a bit too sort of confusing. But I've been taking a bunch of these frames that I'm going to show you in a minute apart and putting them back together, and it's been really, really nice. And the discount on it was like massive. So I didn't pay a lot for it, so I don't know. Maybe I'll hang on to it. But here's my question, headphone users. Is this absolutely horrifying? Oh, I don't have it turned on. Is this absolutely horrifying? So that's with the VTX down on the table.
Did you run it? I couldn't hear it.
Really? Good. And then this is it in the air?
Keep talking, because I think your noise gate is cutting it.
Oh, well, that's fine, because this is how I'll be using it. I'm now using it to tighten this guy back up, and then, well, I can just sit here and do this. I mean, if I hold it close to the mic, obviously, but I would be using it like here, and then I would be using it over here. And like, I don't understand why it's as loud as it is, but it is.
Chat's saying not bad. Danzilla says not offensive at all.
Really? Okay. Well, that's cool, because what I was like, great, I'm gonna fall in love with this thing, and then I'm gonna have to do a bunch more research to find the one that's quietest. But if that doesn't bother you all, it doesn't bother me. I mean,
it's in the background. You can tell it's running when you're talking.
Quieter. I'll be really honest. I kind of would love to have to do the research to find which one's the quietest and have the quietest one. But that's just me being an asshole. So, yeah, this one's already here.
I bought the Amazon branded one a few weeks ago on a Project Farm recommendation.
Yep. That's same thing for this.
Yep. And that's what I used for rebuilding my my RC Monster truck. And I did the same thing that you were talking about, where you let it slip out of your hand so that you don't over tighten it. Sure. But it's definitely louder than that by a long stretch. So,
all right. Well, maybe I already have the quietest one. So yeah, these are not M1.5s in here. These are stupid sized. So yeah, DJI legitimately screwed us on the. Oh, great. Hold on, Kevin. Hold on, everybody. Now that I put that back in my ear, it's going to do things. Okay, switching back over to the right microphone. And
as everything goes to hell.
There we go. Okay.
All right. We're back. We back.
So yeah, this is annoying. You can get this plate. You can get this plate for the bottom of this, which gives you 20x20 mounting. So you could technically put an 03 into your older frames with the 20x20 mounting. Again, you'd put it on the top of the stack, and you would run your 20x20 screws up through the 20x20 AIO and into this, and you would need to run like a 25 millimeter standoff to clear all that. But you could probably do that, and then the 03 camera is not gigantic, so you could probably fit this in anything. And then, yeah, we already talked about 04 and Walksnail a little bit. So, yeah, I think a lot of these older frames can be kind of sort of brought back to life with current, obviously with ELRS, but also with much more current video systems. Or just build the damn things analog again and or just start flying them again. Look, like this this Ripsqueak V2 here is such a blast to fly because it carries the Insta360 Go 2, and it's just like a straight up analog build. But I never fly it because the damn thing is on Crossfire, and ELRS is just better in every single way. And so these builds, I'm gonna figure out what like the cheapest little Crossfire receivers are. I don't think I'm actually gonna find the cheapest. I think I'm just gonna get Radio Master XR1s, which are the dual band ones. They're not actually dual band. They're it's a dual band antenna, and then the whole XR series of Radio Master receivers use a chip that has 900 and 2.4. And so you put a dual band antenna on it, and then you can go into the Lewis script and swap from 2.4 to 900. God forbid you ever need to do that. But then you just have a bunch of those dual band antennas. You know what? I actually probably won't do that, come to think of it, because that 900 antenna is going to be super wide. But I think there's an XR that just has a regular, whatever. These are going to get switched over to ELRS, and I'm going to start flying them again because they're perfectly good working rigs that don't deserve to just be sitting on the shelf as hood ornaments. And then I'm actually going to sell at least one of them, maybe two of them, because I certainly don't need this many of these, and I would rather them find a good home. But I need to bring a Ripsqueak back up to current spec and start flying it again, because it's just a really decent frame. And there's a lot of, like I said, these older frames that we have sitting around that don't deserve to just be sitting around. They deserve to be flying. And so let's look at a couple of them and take a weird little stroll down memory lane, because what's the other thing that's kind of interesting that's had me thinking about this is that, like, all of these frames in front of me have contributed to my frame in some way or another. And it's kind of cool to sort of see that, to see some sort of influences and to see where this sort of frame design kind of came from. And while I'm doing that, I have an 04 Pro camera. I have this really cool little flywheel housing. And I have an 03 with an 03 camera. And we can kind of see what will fit in some of these frames. Some of these frames have narrower front standoffs. Some have wider front standoffs. And so some cameras will fit in one that won't fit in another. And yeah, and then we can also kind of compare them to this, which is the modern style of 3-inch frame. Like, you won't find a 3-inch frame other than my own, I don't think, for sale anymore, that doesn't have this giant long ass on it for 20x20 VTX mounting, which makes a lot of sense. Actually, 20x20 and in some cases 25x25, which makes sense because most people are running an 03, an 04, a Vista, and you have to have a big old chunk of space for that usually, especially if you're going to have a 20x20 stack up front. But there's a lot of really good AIOs, and I cannot effing believe that I'm kind of recommending AIOs because they've always been sort of the bane of my existence, but they are legitimately getting really good. Also, if anybody was wondering what the hell I was talking about with the gloops of hot glue to hold your ND filter on, that's what that looks like. You just heat up the tip of your hot glue gun, push it on there, yank it off, and you've got nice little blobs of hot glue, which will actually hold these camera butter filters on. Without that, the first big front on hit, that filter just comes flying off. With both 03 and 04, they stay on there totally fine until you start crashing hard. Then they just pop off. It's too much to ask. And so, yeah, start using little blobs of hot glue. And so, yeah, the previous frame design did not have such a long ass. And so, yeah, we're going to take a look at them because they're perfectly valid. And you might have gold sitting on your shelf just waiting for electronics. So if we go all the way back to the beginning, there was a little frame company called Rotorius. Rotorius was my very first sponsor. Jesus, probably 7 or 8 years ago. The build that I was flying at Quad Camp Atlanta, where I did the Matty Flip and the Power Loop indoors in their warehouse, with a whole bunch of like the top pilots there. Oh my God. Bot, Drew Camden, Stinger Swarm, Joshua Bardwell, and I'm sure I'm missing one or two other folks. I was flying Rotorius's earlier version of this frame, which was called the CB122. CB for Crybaby, 122 for the distance, motor to motor. That was actually a 2.5-inch frame that I'd built on 1304 RCX motors with 4S. And like at the time, nobody had seen a micro on 4S. It was like, oh shit, everybody was scared. People were hiding behind big pieces of cardboard, partially because of my flying, also because it was a 4S 2.5-inch rig inside of a small warehouse. But yeah, that was the CB122. And then it went to CB3, 3 for 3-inch props. And we went to removable arms, which was really, really, really nice. This one I have built with the arms up inside the frame. So the base plate is on the bottom here, coming all the way across, and then the arms are above the base plate. You could build it this way, or you could build it like that. This is the more traditional way of building it. Your sandwich plate is on the very bottom, then the arms, then the bottom plate, then the standoffs, then the top plate. But you could make a little bit more room for your camera by building this thing upside down. And so I might rebuild this with just straight up analog in it. I don't know, maybe 04, maybe analog, but like building it out like this, you give yourself more space for the camera and less space for the stack. But if you don't need the extra space for the stack, you might as well do it like this, because it pulls the motors up a little bit, and so it brings the center of gravity down. And so this frame here, which I don't think anybody has, but if anybody has it, this frame is 20 by 20 only, the only possible mounting. And so this kind of represents some of these older frames that are going to be 20 by 20 mount only. And so for this frame, you would be looking at like a 20 by 20 AIO, and then the VTX mounting is going to be a pain in the ass. You could do like a Vista. You'll have plenty of space for the Vista camera like that, but you're going to have to run taller standoffs. You're probably going to have to go to like at least a 25 millimeter standoff. They also sell 28 millimeter standoffs or 30 millimeter standoffs. And so you could do stack screws up through the bottom, through the AIO, and then drive them in and through the Vista, or you could do drive them into an 04 Pro with those tall standoffs. You could almost certainly, well, we can look, right? So here's an 04 Pro camera. If I put this into the front, with this particular frame, I forgot about this. The problem is going to be the front standoffs. They are not going to be wide enough for 04 Pro. So this is a frame that actually won't work with 04 Pro, even though we've got the 20 by 20 screws on here. It ain't gonna work. So for this guy, we're gonna be either like analog, or you might be able to cram a RenCam hybrid in here if you can find it. But otherwise, yeah, it's gonna need to be a 20 by 20 HD VTX that you can put on here. So think like the Walksnail Lite would work, because Walksnail, not Lite, the regular Walksnail, old school Walksnail VTXs would work. And then with Walksnail, what's really nice is you have a bunch of different camera options, and I know there's a bunch of 14 millimeter and 19 millimeter camera options. So a frame like this with the 20 by 20 mounting only, that's where you'd be able to go to bring this into a more modern age and start flying it again. And then you've also got a little area in the back here which will very easily clear an ELRS receiver, right? An ELRS receiver with a little mini Mortal T antenna would sit really nice flat in the back of this. You've got your VTX mounted somehow in the middle top, and then your AIO, and away you go. So even a super old, this is like a 7 or 8 year old frame here, we could very easily bring this into the modern day, start flying it again. Still got the removable arms. And again, this represents a frame with more narrow standoffs. Then there are some, okay, so also in that vein, this is the Impulse RC Micro, I almost said Alien, but it's not the Alien, it's the, what is it, the Apex? Yeah. So this is the Micro Apex. This also represents skinny front standoffs. I don't think you'd be able to run now. 04 Pro ain't gonna fit here. The I wonder if the 03 will fit. Nope, the 03 won't even fit in here. So yeah, this is another skinny front standoff frame, which makes things a little bit more difficult. This is also another frame with only 20 by 20 mounting, right? That's 20 by 20. Do I seriously not have anything 20 by 20 on this messy ass desk right now? It's 20 by 20 mounting. It's the same mounting in the front as it is in the back. So this frame does have the longer ass. So you could put like a Vista in the back, a walk snail in the back, whatever, that's 20 by 20. And then you can do a stack in the middle here, and then you've got plenty of room up front for even a tall camera. This frame we're going to see in a minute is a little bit heavier. I do not recommend that anybody buy this frame. This frame was actually sent to me by my buddy Brad, and it's funny, when I got it out, I was like, why did I never get one of those? I was putting this together last night, and I grabbed a couple different screws to kind of try to build it, and it just, nothing was, the one screw was too big, the other screw was too small for these standoffs. The bastards used M2.5 standoffs for this. And so, yeah, that's why I never bought one of these. But I think I can just drill this frame out to accept regular old like M3 standoffs, which I'll probably do because they only use 6 standoffs to put this, and it's a split base plate. So you have to have standoffs in the front that are 5 millimeters taller than the standoffs in the rear. And with M2 standoffs, that's sometimes a pain in the ass. So yeah, here's the other narrow front standoff kind of build where it's going to limit you on cameras. 04 Pro camera ain't going to work. 03 camera ain't going to work. But what will work, if you can figure out how to mount a 25 by 25 stack in here, would be an 04 light front camera. This will pretty easily slide between the front standoffs. But again, the problem is 04 light is 25 by 25, and this does not have any 25 by 25 provisions. So now you got to do like weird shit with like adapting the 20 by 20 to 25 25. Just throw this in the dumpster instead.
Don't worry, you can't buy that. You can't buy that frame anymore anyway. Impulse RC is dead, and all the big shops are out of it. Super
sad. But if you do have one of these, you would be looking at maybe like a 20 by 20 AIO, and then the walk snail VTX that has the 20 by 20 holes in it. And again, you just run the stack screws up through your AIO, and then you crank them into the VTX. And you'll have to run tall standoffs, but you know there is a way to bring this frame into using some more modern stuff. But this one is going to be a little bit tough, and it's going to be heavy. We're going to, like I said, weigh these in a minute.
Are the stack screws M2 or M3? Like, what's the hole size?
2.5.
Oh, the stack screws as well, not just the standoffs?
No. Oh, sorry. The stack screws are regular M1.5.
M1.5?
No, they're not. They are... Oh, for Christ's sakes. I just cleaned up the bench, and so now...
You can't find anything.
I can't find anything. Sorry, they're M3. They're M3 stack screws. Boy, is that a pain in the ass. But you can adapt them.
You even screw that into that doesn't go into any of the DJI stuff, right? The DJI stuff uses like M2 and smaller mounting hardware.
It sure does.
So don't try to center mount a DJI
So
device
this
on
frame
that.
is worthless.
The back isn't the back's built for a Vista, as I recall, which should have
The back
correct
is,
size.
yeah. You could put you could put some stuff in the back. So
Then you got to deal with the camera in the front, the VTX in the back.
it's
Wants to do
M2 in the back. Yeah, and it's an M3 stack. So yeah, just more pain in the ass with this particular frame. But there's a whole bunch of these older frames that have much wider front standoffs, namely the BQE Ripsqueak. This is the V1. The BQE Ripsqueak V2. Thank God BQE kept the front standoff dimensions exactly the same between the V1 and the V2. So all of these, this guy here, this is the Rotorius Zoot frame. Rotorius, for a very brief period of time, was really good friends with Bill from BQE. And so they took the V1 Ripsqueak geometry and Rotorius made it look arguably cooler. And so there's the Zoot, the little devil horns here, I believe was my influence of like, for the love of God, give us better motor protection. Than if you're gonna, make a bunch of changes to it, but keep the main geometry the same, right? Please let one of those changes be better motor protection. And so yeah, this is the Rotorius Zoot frame that I just happened to dig up, and at some point I sprayed this particular one with that color shift automotive paint. And so yeah, this guy, as well as these Ripsqueaks, we could actually put the 04 Pro camera into. There is exactly enough clearance left and right to these front standoffs for you to just run like a simple little TPU standoff loop, and just jack that into the top screws in this camera, and then it just sits in there and you get your up tilt like that. And so very weirdly, go ahead, Kevin.
I don't know why, but that 04 camera sticking out the front of that thing just looks so stupid.
Yep.
Like,
it is a funny look, but god damn if that wouldn't work. And a lot of frames hang the camera. I mean, like, so those TPU loops, you can pick there's different lengths. And so you could tuck this camera all the way back there. Like you could ostensibly get get the camera back like that, so that it is somewhat protected. And then of course you have the battery on top.
The thing I'm running into with because I run some of the fat walk snail cameras, which are smaller than those, they hit the stack.
Yeah, right. So that's one of the issues that you'll run into with these old school tighter frames, right, without a big fat ass, is that the stack and the camera are going to compete for the same space. The screw holes in the bot, sometimes the screw holes will let you kind of move things around. It looks like on this particular frame there might be 25. This actually, you know what this is? This is 20 by 20 on the outside, 16 by 16 on the inside. That's how old this frame is. I don't think anybody has this frame anymore. But the Ripsqueak frames, on the other hand, I think that they're more realistic. I was showing you the V1 before. Bill did this really cool mounting setup with these little like V's. And so you'll be able to move the stack back in these V's to give yourself a little bit more camera space. And if you can run an AIO, much like my HD build here, you run an AIO with ELRS built in. You don't need to use the back of the frame there to put a receiver or the VTX. The VTX is up on top. So like these old school Ripsqueak frames are actually a really interesting candidate for the V1 frames. Don't have any 25 by 25 mounting, so you wouldn't be able to run the 03, but you could run the 04 Pro, I'm willing to bet, if you move the 20 by 20 AIO back as much as you can and then drive those stack screws up into the bottom of the 04 Pro. And then with tall enough standoffs, these are 25 millimeter standoffs and they look like they're about right. But there's also a 28 millimeter standoff. It looks like you could get a decent amount. I put it in the back hold on, let me put it in the actual front. It looks like you can get quite a bit of up tilt. This is one of the problems that we'll sometimes have, is that we won't be able to get enough up tilt. But it looks like, yeah, we should be able to get enough up tilt. And then the TPU loops that you run around the front standoffs, there's different lengths mounting the camera forward and backward. And so you would just dial that length in before it hits the stack, right? Run it really shallow at first so that it clears the stack for sure, and then space it farther and farther and farther back. The farther back you push it, the more it's going to protect the camera, but eventually the top plate is going to come into view. And so that's the other thing that you're trying to kind of balance out there, is when the top plate comes into view. But yeah, if you have V1 Ripsqueak frames sitting around, this could be a really cool, super lightweight way of moving an 04 Pro around. Unfortunately, there is no 25 by 25 mounting provisions on this V1, and so you're not going to get an 04 light into here. I mean, I guess you could just like VHB it to the top plate or something like that, and then run your battery strap around it, but that's not a great idea. It's a shame that there's no 25 by 25 mounting on this, but for 20 by 20, this is a totally valid frame with nice wide front standoffs that you can put any number of cameras in. So that's the Ripsqueak V1. Then the Ripsqueak V2, it's got 20 by 20 and 16 by 16 actually, and then 25 by 25. So the Ripsqueak V2, you could put anything into this. Kevin, what video systems are in yours? It sounds like
So let's see.
one of them.
I have HD0 Race VTX, which is 20 by 20 on top of a stack. I have, for a little while, I tried a HD0 Whoop VTX, the original TX 5S.
25 by 25, right?
25 by 25 on top of an AIO. I have a HD0 Freestyle V2 on top of a 20 by 20 AIO. I think Flywoo is the only one making those anymore. And then I have two Walk Snail builds, both of them stacked on top of AIOs on 25 by 25 mounting.
Nice. Yeah, so a lot of different options there. And then for DJI, we've got, two options. We can't really do 04 Pro and 04 Lite. Can't really do the 03 because they use these stupid screws here. If you wanted to do an 03, your only option would be to get this little aluminum bottom plate here. And this aluminum bottom plate gives you regular old 20 by 20 mounting with regular M2 stack screws, so you could run them up into there. Kind of a waste. This aluminum bottom plate, the real use for it, in my opinion, is this little channel down the middle to run your wires. So you set this up so that your wire plug here is in the back, and then you run the wires down in that little channel. That's what I think makes sense for this. But technically, yeah, there would be a way to get an 03 into one of these older school frames. And so yeah, these are the wide front standoff frames, right? Like it's not super common. It's more common for frames to have the more narrow front standoffs, and those are a lot more difficult. Like I don't even know if this 03 camera fit. Nope. This 03 camera won't even fit in here. What about the CB122? Nope. So yeah, the video systems have gotten a lot bigger over the years, and that makes whether an older frame, whether you can breathe new life into an older frame, a little bit more of a challenge. But there are certainly a bunch out there. Rotorius Zoot, BQE Ripsqueak V1, BQE Ripsqueak V2, and that is why I got lucky. Like the specs for the front standoffs on my frame, I was like Ripsqueak specs, because it's always better for the front standoffs to be wider, and then if you run a really narrow camera, you just run TPU standoff loops that have a little bit more material, or if there's a wider camera, you can put it in here. I got pretty lucky. because really what we were speccing it out for was the RunCam Hybrid, and the RunCam Hybrid is a big ass camera. It's really tall. It's 19 millimeters wide. And so it was spec'd for this camera. And it just happens to be now that we have a bunch of really good HD camera systems and camera VTX systems that are 19 and 20 millimeter wide cameras. Also the Vistas. I keep forgetting to mention the Vistas. The Vista is a 3-inch, a nice, quiet, safe 3-inch build with really good power with a Vista on board. Like, that's awesome. Yeah, you don't get 4K, but like the 720 that you get out of a Vista is great. The penetration is awesome. It just works. You can see where you're going, and it almost kind of suits, like, you got the old school DJI VTX and camera system on like the older school frame. Throw ELRS on there and you can fly it far away. The range on the Vista is also really, really good, not just the penetration. So I think that makes, I think that's a really cool thing to kind of do. Get some of these frames off the shelves, put the more modern video and receiver systems into them, and at least fly them until you run out of arms. You know what I mean? Get your money's worth out of those frames, and then when you do break the last arm, then you can put it back on the shelf, as a symbol of how hard you work on flying, on learning to be as good of a pilot as possible, because a part of that is going to be crashing hard all the time. And so get your money's worth out of those frames that you have kind of kicking around. I have the electronics set up out of the version of my frame that I built with analog to destroy, and so that electronic setup is going to go into one of these frames. I'm not sure which one it's going to be. I think it might be one of these old Rotorius CB3 frames, because they're so close to that build that I was flying at Quad Camp. It would kind of be cool to have one of them put together. But I've also got these 3 rip squeaks. These rip squeaks were like the main, like, hardcore freestyle builds that I was flying way back when. These might get moved around. I don't know if I'll maybe keep these, get them dialed in, get them off of Crossfire onto ELRS. And then, I got to get these back up in the air. And then, like I said, one of them is definitely getting sold. One of them I'm going to keep for sure. I have a feeling it's going to be this one. But yeah, one of these V1 rip squeaks, because it's such, like, this was a build that I did over and over and over again. And it ended up, it turned out like really nice. Like, there's no wasted space. Everything is in there. ELRS will fit just fine in the back. Little tiny, I will, hopefully this analog VTX still works, because it's hard to find these itty bitty analog VTXs now. There used to be a whole bunch of different ones. But yeah, this is a really cool little build setup. The RunCam Hybrid still works pretty okay. I think it's 1080p on board. It's not as good as 03 or 04, which is kind of crazy because those are FPV and HD at the same time. But it's pretty good, and it's analog, so it's super low latency. The RunCam Hybrid FPV camera is a RunCam Sparrow, which was a really low latency racing camera. So like 5 milliseconds, 6 milliseconds of latency with this setup. So it's really fun to fly. You feel really connected to it. And so yeah, there you go.
Wasn't the RunCam Hybrid, wasn't that released in like 2018 or something?
It's old. And this is this is the V2 Hybrid, I believe.
You're talking about the 03, which was 2023, something like that. That is a long time in FPV.
Oh my god, this RunCam Hybrid is 4K. It's not proper 4K though. It's old school 4K, where like it's like 1080, but then with extra pixels around the 1080 pixels to make it 4K. So yeah, bust those old frames out. What old frame do you have? Who is going to their box or bag or shelf of old shit that they haven't flown in a while. Micros, we're sticking with micros here. 5-inch, whatever. There's a million different 5-inch frames. 3-inch, 2.5-inch, 3.5, less 3.5. But who's got old 3-inch frames that they might that they're now realizing, as I'm saying all this, they can put one of these more modern systems in and start flying around a little bit. What do you guys got? Who's got things? In the chat, Matthew Wagner was first, FizzPV was second, CiottiFPV, Level Up, Frank Dr. Nicholas, Danzel the Terrible, Kevin Sumner, The Madman, Douglas 6, David Ciotti, what's up, Dad? Danzel the Terrible, Sear FPV, FPV Toast, Chuck P, Philip, Jimmy the Cow, Capital C, and Beef FPV. I'm gonna when I have a million things going on, I just read the first page instead of reading everybody. You gotta get here early, or just type at CiottiFPV to talk to me. Denzel the Terrible says hello friends, hello CiottiFPV. Madman says I'm here for Kevin Sumner. Jimmy the Cow says moo to you, brother. Jimmy the Cow also says I love SpeedyB video receivers. I have a rapid fire module that seems to do worse, and flashed Achilles module as well. Is the TBS Fusion any better than SpeedyB? I'm chasing zeros. The TBS Fusion is slightly worse than the Rapid Fire in terms of the sensitivity of the actual onboard components, but the TBS Fusion has had a software update more recently than the Rapid Fire, and so they're probably about the same. SpeedyB is years newer, and so the SpeedyB video receiver has the same sync pulse reconstruction as TBS, as the Rapid Fire. They were the first ones to do it. And so it's got the same thing as both the Rapid Fire and the Fusion, but it's just a lot newer. And so it wouldn't surprise me if the components inside the SpeedyB receiver are a little bit better, and or the firmware is better. Go ahead, Kevin.
They all use the same chipset. So literally the only difference is the firmware, and even that is like the firmware that's driving the chipset is the same. And so it's everything around it that actually matters. And from what I've heard, and I think Bardwell has even said this too, like they're all basically the same at this point. Just pick one and stick with it. It's not worth jumping between them.
I think the SpeedyB is the cheapest. That
is true.
I was all excited to get the SpeedyB maybe a year and a half ago. And I actually contacted SpeedyB. I was like, hey, any interest in like working together? I do a couple live streams on it. You send it to me, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, oh no, we're not making that anymore. And I was heartbroken. And then, I don't know, like 6 months ago, all of a sudden somebody mentioned the SpeedyB receiver. I was like, I don't make that anymore. And they're like, I just bought it. Oh, good. So they started making it again, which is great. It's really, really nice that they're making that again. And so, yeah, now I'll email them again and see if they want to send me one, because I'm not buying one. I've got 2 Rapid Fires that work great. Jimmy the Cow also says, my frame name vote is the Gangly Frame. SPM a cow. I can't spell gangly moo. It's got to have a better name than that. It can't just be like a word and then frame. It has to be like, like Acrobrat or Reverb, or like it has to have like a word. And I think I want that word to be somewhat mental health related.
Keep reading. There's some good options further down.
Or like Siren, like the Quadmilla Siren frames. Denzel the Turbo says frame should be called the Teddy. No. What else? My dad says, or the Maggie. No. Time Rides says, I saw that Flywoo was selling 04 lights with the option for the MPU 66 gyro, which is the coolest thing ever. I wonder if that could help with the stuttering video after stabilizing. That better gyro will help with sort of everything. And so, yeah, it's really, really cool. I've seen that they're going to be doing it, but I haven't seen a price, or I haven't seen it available yet. D'Angelo Vitello says Magpie is a pretty good name for the frame. That's actually true. That's what I mean. Like that, like Magpie would be a great name for it.
That's my vote of everything I've seen so far.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. We could, yeah, that would be fun to stay within the order of the Corvid. Yeah, that's a great idea. FizzPV says, could you do a 1S or 2S 2-inch like the baby turtle with a walk snail setup? You could. It's going to be heavy, though, unless you use the walk snail light. Walk snail light is a gram lighter than the 04 light. And so, yeah, the walk snail light would absolutely work. The heavier walk snail setups, though, it's going to be tough. They're thicker and they're a lot heavier, and so getting those to fit inside of a baby turtle is going to be an issue. Baby turtle does just run off of regular M2 standoffs, though, and so you can get 15 millimeter, 20 millimeter M2 standoffs and make anything fit. But now you start to add a whole bunch of weight, and so now it's not going to crash all that well. M2 standoffs are going to want to turn into parallelograms when you crash really hard. So it's a slippery slope when you start making these itty bitty little frames heavier than what they were kind of spec'd out to be. So yeah, that could be a total pain in the ass if you're going to be crashing it hard. If you're not going to crash it hard, if you're going to crash it into the grass, you can absolutely get away with that. So yeah. Jimmy the Cow says, chat has named your frame Magpie or Maggie, something Maggie related, so because. It definitely wouldn't just be named Maggie. That would be weird. Like, if Maggie named one of her papers Aaron, I would be kind of weirded out. And so I'm not going to name my frame just, like, straight up her first name. Also, there's no, like, I would love for there to be some sort of, like, a flight connotation to this, and Magpie does that. So, yeah, Magpie is a serious contender. And Yafu says, I crashed my TBS Mojito into in near a river yesterday and spent 2 hours walking through 2.5 meter tall grass to get it back. Oh, my God. Plane is undamaged, but I can't say that for myself. Yeah, for sure. Recovery missions are something else in our world. Striker says, was looking at the TWR for these 3-inch builds. I don't know what TWR is. And things seem abnormally low in comparison to 5-inch, 2-inch open prop, etc. What the hell is TWR? Stop using jargon. Everybody stop using jargon. This is what happens when you use jargon. Someone doesn't understand it, and it wastes a whole bunch of time and effort. Stop it. Stop using silly acronyms. Stop using stupid jargon. Just type out what things are.
It's thrust to weight ratio. Striker has another comment right after it.
Comparing theoretical values from thrust values given by RC and power. So those numbers that you get from the manufacturers mean nothing. On 1202.5, 11,500, 2S, 2.5-inch prop, 1404. Jesus. Okay. Yeah. This is a lot. But what I can tell you is that micros always have significantly lower thrust to weight ratio than 5-inch rigs. 5-inch rigs are designed to hurtle 80, 90 miles an hour across football fields. Micros are meant to fly in the street in front of your house, kind of thing, right? And so it makes sense that they have a lot lower thrust to weight ratio. It's actually what we want. You can certainly build 3-inch rigs with 10, 11 to 1 power to weight ratios, and then you can go to a football field and it won't feel as good as a 5-inch rig, but it'll feel better than a tiny whoop. And it's a weird flight experience. Like, it's less efficient, it's less fast. And so it doesn't do as good of a job in a big area like that. But then, yeah, I don't know. It always feels very unbalanced to build a really high power to weight ratio 3-inch rig. That's not what they're for, unless it has to be. If you live somewhere that there are countries in this world where they can't build above 250 grams, period. And so they cannot build a 5-inch rig. And so in those areas, if you want as much power as possible, yeah, sure, you build a 249 gram rig with 10 to 1 power to weight ratio, and it's as good as you're going to be able to get. But here in cheeseburger land, even though we, make the whole world worse for everyone, at least we can fly 5-inch rigs. And so for us here in the US, we might as well take advantage of what little freedoms are left and rail our 5-inch rigs around really big locations, and then build 3-inch, 2.5-inch, 3.5-inch for the smaller locations. And then we're using the right tool for the job because these are way safer, way more realistic to fly in smaller spaces. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question. Yuke says, my cat is in a mood. I'm whooping and he's doing laps, waiting to attack. Usually he could care less. Nice. FizzPV says, the Moonlight kit has both mounts. The 4K kit, I just got it. Nice. Very cool. Walk Snail is way better than DJI at giving a shit and or knowing what the FPV world wants. So yeah. Madman says, I have the same driver. It is the best. Very cool. I'm cautiously optimistic. My favorite thing about I don't know if I'll use this at the bench unless I'm doing like a whole bunch of props on, props off kind of testing. Where this was really nice is I had all these frames laid out on the floor, which you'll see if I fly a battery or two tonight. And the light was really nice because I could just tap it on real quick and have this light to kind of look around on the floor for what. And then, yeah, I like rapid fire built a whole bunch of these frames, and it was just super nice to be able to bap, 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 and it made like, oh, I accidentally built this one backwards or upside down. It made that like, oh, I'll just quickly, rather than like, fuck it, I'll just leave it. Who cares? And so I'm starting to kind of just taking this thing, just walking this over to the table, that was kind of nice. That was slick. But it's not that much more work to just grab the 3 MIP drivers and work over there. And so, I don't know. Is this worth the $40-something that I paid for it? I'm not sold on it yet, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't do prop testing that often. There have only been a couple of occasions where I've done so much building that the carpal tunnel starts to kind of like, I start to be able to feel it. And so, I don't know. It might get returned. We'll see. We'll see. I do love the light on the front of it, though. Jesus, it's so nice. What do these frames weigh? Someone asked. Here you go. And I even have... I thought I did. Did I not put together one of my frames with no electronics in it? What? I did. Where did it go? It was here a second ago. There it is. There's 2 of them. So yeah, I'm going to compare these to my frames. We'll start with what I think is going to be the fattest one, which is the Impulse RC Micro Apex. Although I don't have any M2.5 screws for the top of this thing, so it is missing the screws, but we'll add like 2 grams. That's probably what they weigh. 61.7, call it 62 grams, call it 64 grams, all said and done. 64 grams is heavy for a micro frame, in my opinion, but it's got the big old ass, so that's why this is so heavy. That is roughly what a Quadmula Siren F3 frame is going to weigh, and so these are very, very similar, these 2 frames. Can't buy this one anymore. Lots of things about it, they're a total pain in the ass, and so the Quadmula frame is going to be a better option than this, but some of these lighter frames you're about to see are yeah, perfectly valid for these lighter weight builds. So going all the way back in time to the Rotorius CB3 with a bunch of aluminum hardware in it, this will be pretty light. 34.5 grams. So call it 35 grams for the old CB3. The V1 Ripsqueak from BQE is 39.1, so 39. That's with a little bit of TPU and some motor screws up front, so call it like 38. Fully naked like the rest of these. So then the Rotorius Zoot, which is basically the V1 Ripsqueak, 31 grams. The arms are significantly thinner on this, and like when you bend this frame, I don't want to bend it really hard because this cool paint will crack. But yeah, this was designed to be very, very lightweight. This would be a pretty fragile frame. This would be kind of rough to fly. The rip squeaks are much more realistic. This frame will stay exactly like this. I won't build this because all this cool color shift spray paint will flake off and immediately. But yeah, so this is just a bit of a showpiece that'll sit back there on the shelf forever. The V2 rip squeak gained a little bit of weight, 38 grams. It doesn't have the TPU and the motor screws in it, so yeah, 38 grams for this guy. This one has lighter. So the BQE rip squeak frames, BQE did a shitload of different arms for these. 4-inch arms, 3.5-inch arms, 3-inch arms, 2.5-inch arms. And then he did the 3-inch arms in a bunch of different thicknesses. This one has the thinner 3-inch arms on it. And it's only 32.8, call it 33 grams. So 33 grams for a V2 rip squeak with the lightweight arms, and then this has the heavyweight arms, which make it 38 grams. The other cool thing about the rip squeaks is that the arms were universal between the V1 and the V2, so you could share the arms back and forth. These on this V1 that I just weighed, and it was 38 grams. These are the heavy duty arms. So yeah, there's a bunch of those. And then mine, this is the one that I destroyed. This is the version 0.01 of my frame with the solid base plate. I think when I eventually sell this, it's going to come with the solid base plate and the split base plate. Maybe not, but maybe. The other option is that this might be a lightweight. I might sell a lightweight and a heavyweight version of the frame. The lightweight version of the frame will have the lighter arms that only have 3 bolt holes and the slightly lighter base plate setup, which is a non-split base plate. I have these set up. I like to build these out with these giant socket head screws, so that when you flat bottom this, if you forget to put foam pads on, there's more metal to the screws. So the hardware is heavy on my frames. 42 grams for this lighter weight version. Again, you wouldn't believe how much weight these socket headed screws weigh. It's wild. So 42 grams there. And then this is the split base plate version, which is 44.7, call it 45 grams. Again, a whole bunch of those really heavy duty screws down the bottom. The 04 Lite version of my frame, this is the split base plate one that I've been flying around. It's not heavy enough. And that's one of the other reasons that I run these socket headed screws, is because when you build this out, even with a big battery, it ends up being less than 250 grams, which is a little bit too light for a 3-inch prop, in my opinion. And so I add weight with hardware that makes serviceability a lot easier, right? These big giant socket heads, when you bang them on the ground a bunch of times, unlike the button heads that are just kind of almost instantly stripped out, you can beat the living hell out of these and you'll still have plenty of hex to get a driver in there and crack it loose. So yeah, the weight has gone up for sure a little bit on my frame versus these old rip squeaks. But again, when these were all built out, they were fairly lightweight. Speaking of, here's my setup here. Big ass motors, 1405 motors. I think these are the biggest motors of all these that I'm about to weigh. HD0 Gamma, 04 Lite up front, 142 grams for this build here. So you add a 4S 850 mAh battery, and that's a 100 gram battery. So this ends up being right on the door of 250, which is where it should be, in my opinion. So yeah, 140, so that I'll remember. And then version 1 rip squeaks. With the giant RunCam hybrid camera, which also has its own 20x20 board. So this is actually pretty similar. This is a 20x20 stack with an extra 20x20 board for the HD side of the camera. 144 grams for this one, which is on 1306 motors from RCX. And then this guy, which is on 1404s, is quite a bit lighter, 135. Same kind of setup, 20 by 20 stack, run cam hybrid, but the motors are a little bit smaller. 1306 is a heavy-ish motor. Both with crossfire, both with analog VTXs, and yeah, full TPU. This one has a little bit less TPU, maybe? Nope, same amount of TPU on both of these. Version 2, without the run cam hybrid, but with this big-ass chunk of TPU here for Insta360 Go 2. And 1505 motors. These are actually the biggest motors. These are Toka 1505s. 139 grams. So, yeah, that RenCam hybrid is a heavy-ass camera because this is a little bit lighter. So this is just regular 20 by 20 stack here and those big, giant Toka 1505 motors. And then last but not least, I should have weighed this one first. This is the CB3, the old-school Rotorius build. With the RunCam hybrid on here and Emax 1306s, 132 grams. Brad actually sent this to me, so I gotta with like no info on it, so I don't know if it still flies. Oh my god, this has a Tarsier in it. No way. Yeah. Oh my god. So the Tarsier was the other dual lens FPV and HD setup, and the Tarsier was the much worse one. The Tarsier had a double stack, a double 20 by 20 stack, and it used an application on your phone and Bluetooth to change the settings, and it just did not work worth a shit. So this will actually get torn apart, and the Tarsier will get removed, and I think I have an extra RunCam hybrid that I can throw in here, or maybe I'll just throw analog in here and just have another simple little 3-inch analog rig. But yeah, this will see the sky once again. These Emax 1306s are actually a decent motor. I think they're 4,000 kV. So like just enough on 4S. Yeah, 4,000 kV. So there you go. There's a bunch of weights of fully built 3-inch rigs from what I'm going to call the golden days of FPV. This is back before FPV was being used in wartime, and this was back before any of the digital systems. FPV changed quite a bit when the Vistas came out, when the digital VTXs were introduced. FPV switched from, at least like in-person FPV changed. When it was all analog, FPV was pretty community. There was a different community to flight lines because everybody could watch everybody else fly. And so like everybody at a flight line would just be standing there with goggles just bouncing between channels until they found somebody that they wanted to watch. And then when that person did something cool, they would, oh! And so like the flight lines were very different back in these days of pretty much like all analog. Because there was always somebody watching you, egging you on, telling you to do something stupid or just screaming when you did something cool. And then the digital systems changed everything. And it, because there's 5 different digital systems. So like on any given flight line, like maybe there's one person that's on the same system as you that maybe can watch you, but usually they don't because like you have to have broadcast mode turned on and most people don't. And so it's just, we don't watch each other fly live anymore is the long and short of it. Unless you go to Castle Crash where they have fancy video systems set up so that you can watch other people fly on a monitor. When's Castle Crash, Kevin?
Castle Crash will be in Trenton, South Carolina on Labor Day weekend this year, starting on Friday. You come and volunteer. You can come and hang out on Thursday as well. Thursday is setup day. I believe that's the 4th through the 7th. Friday the 4th through Monday the 7th. And we party all weekend long. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's a blast. Come hang out or else. Nyafu says not very loud. What's not very loud?
It's the screwdriver.
Oh, perfect. Cool. God, I'm that far behind in chat. Jeez, yeah, I'm an hour behind in chat.
Yeah, you're an hour behind.
All right, I gotta go through these as fast as I can. Cole FPV says, think his voice conferencing software is doing noise cancellation. We can hear it on stream. Kevin, you should bring up the stream audio and mute the call while you listen. There's a massive delay, which is why you can't do that. Denzel the Turbo says, my BT3 connectors are very difficult to disconnect. Got a trick for loosening them up a bit without making them too loose. Yeah, you got to compress the pin just a little bit. XT30s, XT60s for sure. I think also XT30s. It's four little pins in there, and
Yep,
you
I'm
can
looking
clamp
at one.
them together
It's 4.
if it's too tight. BT 2.0 and I think 3.0 are just two things like this, and so just clamp them a little bit. Don't clamp. Well, if you clamp them too hard, you can always jam something thin in there to pry them back out. But yeah, that's really the only trick, is to clamp those pins down a little bit. I know it's annoying as hell. Ryan Sadat says, good evening. Cole FPV says, if you take the corner screws out of the 04 Pro, you can run it on a 25 by 25 stack. 04 Pro, if you take the corner screws. Yes. I like just using these threaded holes better. 04 Pro, to me, this is the ultimate. This is the perfect kind of setup. 20 by 20, 25 by 25, molded into the case that you can drive screws into. I love that they did this. I wish they'd done it on both sides, to be honest, but I know why they didn't. Cole FPV says 04 Lite recently got a new SKU with 155 field of view. I think it was 157 or 159. Interesting. I wonder. At first, I was gonna say, yeah, that's because now there's the 04 Lite wide, but the 04, but yeah, I wonder why they did that. Capital C says you can print a 25 millimeter to 20 millimeter adapter. Yep, they do sell these adapters. They've always kind of sketched me out. But I've seen people use them and they've kind of been fine. But yeah, I don't know. Really hard crash with an adapter.
I ran them for a little while. They're okay. You just got to be careful.
Yeah. Nyavu says, why do all the old frames have arms from the edges while the new ones are from the center? The new ones make sense because of the arm locking mechanism, but what about the old ones? So we hadn't figured out. So two major things have happened in frame design over the last 10 years in reference to this. We didn't even realize that these are all more modern frames, but initially we didn't even realize how important it is to connect all four arms together. And this is a perfect example of that. But the left and right arms are connected together on the Ripsqueak frame, so they kind of got away with it. And so, yeah, there was a learning curve of all four arms should connect at a certain place and brace off of each other. The other thing that happened, though, is that initially, what's a good example of that? This is an example of that. Initially, the 20 by 20 mounting just went right through the arms, and everything was kind of tied together. And so the vibrations coming through the arms had a direct path into the screws that are going up into your stack that have the gyro on it that you want to isolate from vibrations. And so eventually when we realized that, this is my frame here, we did stuff like isolating the stack hole. The stack screws, what was that noise? Kevin, you still there?
Yep.
All right, cool. I think the batteries might be getting low on this earpiece. Yeah, that's what it is. So we realized we need to isolate the stack screw, which is down in this little pocket. There, you can see it. You isolate the stack screw from the arms. And so those two things have drastically changed frame design over the years. And it's why, yeah, you'll see some like really weird frames like this with just the front arms connected, just the rear arms connected. You'll see other frames where the stack screws go straight through the arms and straight through everything. And you can kind of like watch frame design evolve over time. This micro Apex, is that what it is? Yeah, micro Apex frame does kind of the worst thing that I've ever seen with stack mounting, in that it's a split base plate. On this upper part of the base plate, they have conical heads down below here. And so in order to get at the stack screws, you have to take the arms off, and now you have to run an M2 conical headed stack screw up through here. And so how the hell do you spin the damn thing, right? So you basically, when you build this, you have to leave the arms off and you build your stack with these specific stack screws, and you get everything tightened down, and then you can put the rest. It's just insane what they've done. But again, this is us figuring it out over the years. This frame has been around for like 4 or 5 years, and so this is a first attempt at isolating the stack screws from the arms, right? We don't have a straight through hole here that we can run that screw. Impulse RC tried to fix that issue with this stupid kind of setup that is a serviceability nightmare. But hey, growing pains. And so yeah, those are some of the major advancements in frame designs over the years. Hold on, let me change this because this earbud is just going to go dead, and then all kinds of annoying things are going to happen. Let me change it out real quick for the left ear, which I haven't been using since 8 o'clock. And I think if I just do this and I wait for a second, I think that it won't switch the mic or do anything else weird, but I am going to double check. Nope, we're good. Cool. Tom Rides EUC says, I tried to solder on arm LEDs, race wires. The pads were tiny and I suck at soldering. What's a good way to tell if I bridged any of the motor wires? Fire the quad up with a smoke stopper on it. The only smoke stopper that any of you should have is the one from Vifly, whose name eludes me at the moment. Short saver. Vifly short saver. This is the only one that you should have because it's the only one that actually works. And so plug it in with this hooked up, and then arm the motors and see if they spin. If they spin and this thing doesn't trip, you're golden. It might trip when they start spinning. There's a button you can push to put it on the 2 amp mode. That should get you there. But you can do things like turn on the beeper. You'll figure out how to get the motors to fire up, and then if they turn, they're not bridged. But hey, you should also have a 5X loop, LOUPE. This will zoom enough for you to be able to see pads that are bridged together. FizzPV, YouTube just did the thing. FizzPV says, I haven't been in it long enough to have that stuff, LOL. That was at 11:01. Wonder what we were talking about at 11:01. Brian Sadat says, I want some Nano QX Inductrix frames sitting. I have some Nano QX Inductrix frames sitting around. I don't want to go back to Spectrum or brushed motors. Yeah.
I do too, buddy.
Yeah. Nyafu says a roll call 1 hour into the stream. That's a new one. Yep. Sear says, I'm wanting a Catalyst Machine Works more massive droner, non-HD, though I'd try to put an HD system in it as far as old frames go. Nice. Oh, that's what Fizz was saying. He hasn't been in FPV long enough to have the old stuff. Got it. YouTube Did the Thing says, call your frame the Screaming Goat, or that works for your own motors. Yeah, that would be a better motor name. The Screaming Goats. Ryan says, Flywheel is already selling the new 04 wide with gyro upgrade. Bought one with your affiliate link. Nice. Thank you, dude. $170. Whew, that's a lot for an 04 light. With the MP gyro, normal is $150. We'll compare to the old Flywheel wide when it arrives. Very cool. Nyafu posted a pic of the grass and general nonsense yesterday. I was like being time slipped in the Jurassic. Z Dr. Itch, I think that is, says, speaking of thrust meaning nothing, Beta FPV 0802 22,000 freestyle motor for the Air 75-2 are slightly higher RPM spinning than RC and Power 802 Evo 25,000s, but the RC and Power has like double the torque on the low end. Yeah, man, there's so many different things that you can change about a motor to make it make more power, more or less KV. And unfortunately, the KV number stamped on these motors doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot, because each different motor manufacturer tests KV in a slightly different manner. So yeah, it's annoying.
They also frequently don't test. They just use the theoretical KV.
Right. Electrum says, picking back up the hobby after 6 years. Glad to see you still around and making content, man. Glad to be here. Stregger says, I assume micros have less thrust to weight than 5-inch, but 2-inch for some reason has way more thrust to weight than 3-inch. I thought the values would be comparable with within the same brand. All this kinds of got sparked by Caillou's website comparing thrust to weight ratio of builds. Yeah, I mean, there's enough motors and props out though that, I mean, you can get whatever thrust to weight ratio you want nowadays on any size. It wasn't like that for a long time. For a long time, we were super limited in the micro world, and we just couldn't get good thrust to weight ratio. Nowadays, there are enough options. There are enough voltage options where you can do whatever you need to do. If the motors are too low of a kV, you go up and, you go from a 3S to a 4S, 4S to a 5S, that kind of thing.
I went real deep on this a while ago when I was first putting together Ripsqueaks, and the answer was everything is too low kV, and so 4S plus 4600 on 3-inch.
Yeah.
And I run pretty low pitch 3020s, and then my builds are also 250 all up, which I know you prefer something a little heavier on 3-inch, but
yeah, the motors are all still a little bit too low of a kV, and so like doing things like going to 5S unfortunately makes a lot of sense. Fortunately though, there are some good 5S batteries. There's a 5S 550 mAh GNB battery that's awesome, and so like going 5S is not that big of a deal. Is it annoying as hell? Of course, because you're not gonna have any other 5S batteries, but like, sometimes that's just what you gotta do.
When I was looking at 5S options, I decided that if I was going to go to a higher voltage, I would go like 6S 550s and just deal with the fact that I'm running 24 volts, which a lot of electronics of this size don't like.
Right. Super 62 says the local law enforcement named all the operators bird stuff. Raptor, Raven, Falcon, silly but fun to listen to. Nice.
I always want... I feel like that's the kind of thing like Raptor, Raven, Falcon. Those are all like badass. We're big.
Right.
Big, got the big old guns. Yeah. Angry American stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus like Magpie. No, I don't expect any law enforcement officer to call something Magpie.
Yeah. True. So true. So true. Let's fly a couple batteries, and then I think that'll bring us pretty much to the end. I think I talked about everything I wanted to. I mentioned this silly little electric screwdriver. We looked at a bunch of these older frames. We weighed some stuff. I was thinking maybe I could figure out which of these old frames I was going to put some of these electronics in, but I'm still not totally sure. I'm curious if anybody would actually, if I were to sell one of these Ripsqueaks, I'm curious if anybody would be interested, with the run cam hybrid and everything. It's a pretty good setup. I'll do some flying and put out some content with it, and then if anybody, if it's good enough quality for anybody, away you go. It's gonna be for analog folks. Where the hardcore analog folks at? Type analog into the chat if analog is still the way, in your opinion. Let's fly this little bastard again, because he's been away for a while, and he's been neglected, and that's great. I left the battery charger on storage charge. Let's not fly. Let's answer some more questions. Or, no. Let's get the Caillou Mini going. We talked about the Caillou Mini the other night. I flew the last couple batteries I wanted to on the 1204s. It is time for this thing to get some 1203s to see if we can make 2S work before we inevitably go to 3S. That is the next step. Look at all these analog people.
I mean,
it's the
still fly analog on 65. I don't feel like any video system other than analog is what you should run on 65.
Agreed. I mean, that's just fact.
I've got some HD0 AIOs that are the AIO 5s that I fly occasionally, but like honestly, I'd rather do analog.
Right.
Those will go back to analog.
King Crimson
those up.
No, go ahead, Kevin.
I was just saying, once I blow those AIO 5s up, which I'm sure that their day is coming.
Right. Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, they don't seem to last all that long. I need to keep these. All right, hold on. I need to keep these here because I want to spin these motors up. I'm getting these up in the air. I'm going to go back to Crossfire for a minute just to because I'm very curious to see if these will still fly.
The receivers are so cheap. Just get the receiver. Get the receivers and put them in.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna swap the receiver, but I'm actually curious to fly them like tomorrow. They've been sitting on a shelf forever. I could have broken them and then put them back on the shelf, and then they have to come apart.
Also, after that long of sitting, you need to smoke check them too, because it's possible they'll pop vets.
Everything will just catch on fire immediately.
Sorry, capacitors. Because those electrolytic capacitors like to blow.
Old and leak.
Yep.
Bastards. King Crimson says, have you seen the 533 Cam Bam? Bought one because I couldn't get a Caillou Mini anywhere. Yeah, it looks really good. It looks just like a Caillou Mini. And so I'm sure it'll be great. 533 does a great job with frame design. And yeah, I'm sure that one is a winner. I haven't personally checked it out, which is fine. Like, look, these frame design is in a place now where, like, if a reputable company does a frame design, it's gonna be good. And like, also the filtering is so good that, like, even if, like, the Max Frames M2, for example, with the carbon fiber rotated, like, in the black box logs, like, you can see a big old frame resonance, but our filtering is so good that it just hammers it, and, like, it's good to go. So yeah, the days of, like, one frame flying a lot better than another frame are not completely gone, but man, even like old janky frames on Betaflight 4.2, 4.3 with RPM filtering, and the newer dynamic filtering, they're so good. And there's not a whole hell of a lot of reason to not go that route. So I uncovered a bunch of itty bitty race wires, and I am really tempted to put them onto this frame. Check out these race wires. I totally forgot that I had these.
Pitch cam's out of focus.
Yeah. Story of my life. Bench cam, get it together, you jerk. Look at these. I believe
Those are the flywoos? Yeah, those are the flywoos.
So these here are in this bag. These are actually tiny sleds, tiny LEDs. But then these are flywoo. And I believe both of these are 2S to 3S only. I actually wrote it on the bag here, 2S or 3S, for the Tiny's LED ones. I'm pretty sure these flywheel ones being basically the same size, having what appears to be the same little resistor or capacitor. No, I guess it is different. This little resistor or capacitor says 2000 on the Tiny's LEDs ones. Oh, the Tiny's LEDs ones have two of them, and they each say 1000. So, yeah, I'm going to assume that these are also 2S or 3S only. You could run them on 4S, but you'll be overdriving the LED, and it'll burn out in pretty short order.
Are those the ones that are 20 mil long?
These...
Actually, it doesn't matter. All of flywoos are 1 to 4S.
No shit. So I could put 4S through these.
Yep.
That's crazy. These are 11 millimeters long.
There's a 10 millimeter option, so that's probably what that is.
Nope, these
with
are
some
10.
slop.
These are 10. These are 10.
Those are 10.
Damn, 1 to 4. Very cool.
Oh yeah, I'm running those on my Ripsqueaks. Actually, the one that's sitting right in front of me has it's the 20 mil version, but yeah, it's those exact ones, the flywheel ones.
Nice. I don't think I'm going to use these flywheel ones though. Yeah, so because they are just a little bit too small. These Tiny's LEDs ones are quite a bit wider. Let me show you. And so that's just going to be a lot easier for me to not bridge these little bastards together. And so yeah, if I do this, I am going to use these. Look at the difference. I think you can still buy these.
Are you only running 3S?
These ones. 2S and 3S, yeah.
2S and 3S, okay.
See that? It's almost 50% wider.
I'm looking for them on their website.
LEDs. Instead of just one LED, it's got 4 each. So yeah, I'll burn through these Tiny's LEDs ones first. You know, the other consideration, though, is how they're going to fit on the arm. These are a little bit wider than the arm, which will drive me only a little bit crazy. I think I'll still probably use these. But, yeah, there are itty-bitty little race wires that you can use, which are just awesome. These little LED race wires are super fun, but, boy, do they take a long time to install. You're tripling the amount of soldering that you have to do, right? Instead of just soldering directly to the ESC, instead you have to solder to the ESC, and then you have to solder here, and then you have to solder here. But after you do it for the first time, it's awesome, because then if you ever need to switch motors, you just boom, 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 pull the motor, and away you go. And so for this rig, and to be honest, most of my builds, I am going to be switching motors over and over and over again. And so having to get like the soldering iron up in here and then like cleanly remove the wire and then get another one in there lined up just right, it is admittedly annoying as shit. And so yeah, these make sense. I just don't know if I can. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait. I'm going to do one of these motors and I'm going to see how it is to do it with this AIO like this and getting the soldering iron in here. And if I can get a good solder joint without wanting to pull my hair out and pee my pants, then I might actually skip these. But let's see. Let's see if I can get this done without the quality of the work going to shit. Like, we could definitely, I can absolutely get this job done, but if I think reinstalling the wire might be where it becomes a complete pain in the ass. And if that's the case, then I'm not going to get a really good solder joint on here. Kind of doesn't matter because I'm just going to take this next set of motors off anyway. But still, I want to show you guys the right way to do this shit. And yeah, if this is not a great way of getting it done, I don't want to be showing it all the time. So let's get this guy clamped in a way that I can work on it pretty easily. And I think that's going to be something like this, maybe. So that I can get the soldering iron down in here while this thing is in a decent orientation. And so, yeah, I think this will be okay. So if I come in like that and then tweeze, yeah. Let's try that. Just going to use these other two little OmniFixos to grab the two that are on there to make sure that they don't move. And, okay, that should be pretty solid. Yeah, that's not bad. All right, so let's see how bad this is. I don't dare work on any of this style of rig without magnification.
Say goodnight to your dad.
Nerd goggles go on. Good night, Dad. Thanks for hanging. Ryan Sadat found a neat trick using an acrylic paint marker to seal the edges of CNC drones frames or any frames with exposed carbon. The black blends right in, and you can add a pop of color. No more carbon splinters, or maybe at least less. That's a pretty slick trick. I wonder if people were doing that and adding color to the edges of their frames forever here. They even realized that's what was also happening, or if they were doing it just for for color purposes. That's funny. I just hit the edges with a little diamond file and call it a day. But yeah, adding a little bit of color, I dig that. To smooth that shit on out. That's a nice side effect of adding a little bit of color to the edge of the frames, because they do look cool. They do look cool with a bead of paint around the outside. All right, let's see how this goes here. These are the RC and Power 1204s. I'm going to go nearest to farthest. God, I hate doing this. I hate working on rigs when they're all put together like this. It always feels like I'm just asking for a solder ball to go somewhere that I can't see it. And then the next time I plug a battery in, the damn thing blows up. And I didn't even have a chance because like right there, when I pull that wire off, we've got molten solder on the tip of that wire, and like I try to pull the wire off of there as gently as I possibly can, but like that's the moment where that's going to happen. And when this thing is together like this, I can't inspect this AIO to see yes or no, did a solder ball drop onto the main processor, which is sitting right there. And so yeah, that kind of sucks.
So I have a rule for myself, specifically for this problem, because I've blown up something because of this problem.
Right.
Every time I touch a solder to a soldering iron to a quad, it gets smoke starter the next time. Doesn't matter how easy I think that solder job was or how foolproof I was. Yeah.
That's a great idea. That is a great little part of your workflow that should not be ignored. What am I doing here? Oh yeah, okay. So, all right. So let's see from the workbench. Let's see if this bothers everyone. Hey, see there you can see. Hey, perfect example. So it just like rotates out of your hand when it rotates your finger off the button. And so like I can of course death grip this thing, right? Like I can actually grab this thing and it'll just hit that screw. But like it's such a slick way of preventing yourself from over tightening stuff with one of these by just being like light. Just hold the screwdriver lightly, and it'll rotate right off your finger when in the situations where you don't want it to over tighten something. Pretty slick. I didn't expect that with this. So there's the 1204 off. Let me grab one. We probably only have time for one. Yeah. Grab one of these 1203s and we'll just drop it on here. And now I'm just going to throw one screw in here real quick. Why is that not going through? What are you doing? And so, okay. Oh, there's a bunch of Loctite in there. Make sure it doesn't get on the C-clip. All right, so I'm only throwing one screw in because I just want to get the motor roughly into position and then cut down these motor wires. And so I'm actually going to release these two so I can rotate this up like this and then lay these motor wires flat and get them as close to the see. So here's the other problem. I like to fold these motors up over the AIO to make sure that I don't cut the motor wires too short, but I can't do that with this thing all put together. And so I'll try something else. I'll try making a 90-degree angle. I'm pushing the motor wires into where the motor pads are, and then I'm just making a 90-degree angle upwards and then just holding my finger on here to hold the motors down. And now I'll just go up a little bit extra. And so 1, 2, 3. That's probably close enough. And there we go. All right, so let's strip and tin these. And then I'm probably going to end up doing the little race wires, and I'm just going to use these little bits of wire to get them set up. What's up, Flaubert? Florence has entered the room and has sighed, but has nothing to say, has nothing of value to say. What should I eat? That's what I get. Eat, go upstairs, and there's this room that we call the kitchen.
Yeah, I know. I've searched the kitchen. I'm thinking of making
If you make the pizza, I will eat it with you.
Ooh, I want some pizza.
If you're looking for a partner in crime on Club Pizza, Kevin wants you to send him pizza through the internet.
Although I got Trader Joe's not Oreos that I'm looking forward to as soon as this ends.
Nice. All right, so we are stripping motors while they're connected to a quad. It sucks. Are you laughing at stripping? We are stripping, bro.
Stripping.
It's a strip stream. All right, there's two. Where's that third one? I can't even see it. There it is.
Mupshot wants to know 1203 motors, not 1202.5. I don't think I've seen those. How big are the props?
What? How big are the what? How big are the props on this
So,
frame? What's the
there's two questions here. One, what size are those motors?
Okay. Yeah, 1203 motors, and then this is a Caillou Mini, which is a 2.5-inch prop build.
And then what 2.5-inch prop. What do you know what pitch or which props you're using?
The HQ T 2.5 by it's 1.6.
You can look them up.
Let me see. I did a couple streams 2-ish weeks ago testing all these props with black box logs and onboard DVR, and these are the ones that I ended up liking the best. 2.1. RT 2.5 by 2.1 by 3. There's also a 2.5 by 1.6 that's really good. Right now, I had this on here because these 1204 RC and power motors are grunty bastards, and so those are the more pitchy 2.5s. And so, yeah, if you're going to run a bigger, gruntier motor, you might as well run a prop that's going to take advantage of it. When I stripped this wire, I didn't dig my fingernails in enough, and I pulled the silicone up over the end of the wire. If you use a lighter like that, it will get the silicone to shrink up a little bit. And then if you just use your fingernail, you can pull back on the silicone to expose the frayed end of the wire again, rather than having to cut the wire shorter.
CiottiFPV says the first rule about Motor Strip Club is tell everyone.
Indeed. Everyone.
Ryan Stott wants to know, other than your asking you and me, other than your first few builds, what rigs left the biggest impact on you? You never forget how much fun they were to fly. For me, it was the Air 65 Freestyle Hubsan X4C.
Hubsan, Jesus.
Oof. That's a name I haven't heard in a very long time.
For real. Oh my God, Hubsan.
Are they still around?
I mean, if they're selling bind and flies, probably.
Oh my goodness. They still have a website.
Awesome.
It looks like they make toy grade stuff now.
Yeah, that's the way to go. That's where the money is.
Ooh, Nano Q, brushless, teeny tiny little boy. Let's see. What about you, Ciotti? What was the first rig that you flew that you were like, oh my God, this was so much fun?
This is the first 5-inch rig I built. I mean, like, the micro shit back then was so bad. And so like the first thing that I built with like proper response time, which of course back then was a 5-inch rig, was like, okay, now I get it. Because like there was just a lot of stuff you straight couldn't do back in the old days of micros. And so yeah, and then when the brushless whoop motors finally came out, that too. Because we didn't have motor braking with the brushed motors. Newbie Drone eventually figured it out. They added an extra FET, but it's still the brushed motors. The performance was nothing compared to brushless. And so yeah, that was a big thing, because all of a sudden, like with tiny whoops, you could actually do all the shit that you could do outside, and that's the best.
Yeah, I was in single rotor before this, all, stuff you can fly in the house. Buddy and I would fly him around his apartment, land him on the refrigerator or on the fan blades or whatever.
Yep.
And then we got the Nano QX, which was the precursor to their FPV, the Horizon Hobby FPV drone.
Yep.
The Inductrix. That was my first quad. Brushed. I'm actually sitting here looking at it right now. Brushed, little canopy on it. All plastic frame. It was fine. And then I think my first actual FPV drone was a Mobulus, the OG Mobulus 6.
Nice.
On 19,000 kV.
That thing was a miracle back in the day.
I know. But it flew so well. Right? Like,
yeah, compared to everything else.
Yeah.
It was a miracle.
That was game changing. And then honestly, once I got the 5-inch, so I think my next build was a 3-inch. It was a Catalyst Machine Works more massive droner that I built with an HGLRC stack. And the first time I crashed it, it lit on fire because HGLRC. I hear they've gotten better, but
I'm not doing this. I'm gonna pull this apart and I'm gonna do this the right way because I'm gonna be swapping a lot of motors. So there you go.
Attaboy, that is the way. Do the right thing.
I could have gotten that done, but no, it sucks. That sucks right there. And there's a good chance I would have fucked it up. And like, no, not homie, don't play that.
But yeah, when that HGLRC stack caught on fire and nearly took the whole quad with me, that was my first God FPV sucks moment.
Yeah. That's the real question. When was your first? Oh my God, this is a nightmare.
And then, honestly, my first 5-inch rig was like, yeah, this is fun. And then I did another 4-inch build, a couple more 5-inch builds, and finally went back to 3-inch on. Actually, I think it was a Ripsqueak V2 was my next 3-inch build, and I rebuilt the more massive droner with better electronics, an Acon ESC, and a good flight controller. That's still my most reliable build. Ironically, it's the one that's had fire in it is now my most reliable. But yeah, the Ripsqueak. Once I got the weight and the motors, especially the motor KV dialed in, it's like, oh my God, I'm never going back. That's what broke me for 5-inch. Everybody's like, oh yeah, 5-inch is the best, and this is me like 4 years ago. Like, no, it's not. You just haven't seen the light.
Yeah, it has been. It took a long time for us to get and figure out. Like, we had to learn the right motors for small setups. But man, was it worth the wait. It took a while, but damn, once we got there, it was like, oh, it doesn't have to be absolutely deafening and cause people to run in fear and like for their lives. Wow. That's pretty cool.
Oh man, Ryan's bringing the nostalgia. You guys remember the Cyma, Cheerson, and Holystone drones? That Cheerson CX-10 was ahead of its time. I think it was on 20 mil props.
Cyma, however the hell you pronounce it.
Cyma, yeah. The Cyma drones were not only brushed, but they used a small gear on the brushed motor, which spun a bigger gear on the prop shaft.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it let them use smaller, cheaper motors. Yeah.
What a terrible idea.
Yeah. It turns out more inertia in the rotating mass is not what you want.
Yeah.
Who knew? Only all the friggin' helicopter guys for 50 fucking years. Anyway, Ryan also says the only problem with the Nano QX was the bendy frames. Yeah, that was a problem. But in a way, it was the first real toothpick with super low disc loading and super stable floaty flight. Yeah. It was good. I mean, it was a good quad for an LOS quad of that time, but there wasn't really anything else.
Yeah. We were not spoiled for choice back then. That's for sure. All right. Well, this is now turned into like. This is going to take hours now because of all the soldering and wire measuring here. So we are going to wrap this live stream up. Any last minute thoughts, Kevin?
Go fly some old stuff. I think I'm gonna pull the oldest drone in my fleet out and go put it in the air next week.
Hell yeah. Fly old beaters, friends. They're just as much fun as old beater cars.
Also,
what's it?
Go put it on new beta flight because it does breathe brand new life into it.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. We're going to start an FPV restoration movement. What's the oldest shit that you can fly, but get it flying really good? There it is. That's the challenge.
Yeah. Honestly, because Betaflight has stopped needing newer processors for a very long time.
Yeah, right.
Pretty much everything from F411 up, you can still put on brand new Betaflight.
Right, right. Yeah,
and that's
like 4.5.
They switched the version numbers. You can still flash the brand newest Betaflight to an F411.
Oh my god, you can put the 2025s on there.
Yep. F1, F3, and what was the other one? F0, which I haven't seen an F3 flight controller in probably 5 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Those were discontinued. Those have been discontinued for quite a while in Betaflight. But yeah, if you got an F4, throw brand new Betaflight on and put it in the air. Send it, as the children say.
Oh, there it is. All right, people. Thanks for hanging. Did we get all the chat?
There's 4 or 5 more comments in here. They're mostly nostalgia.
Uke says, printing some whoop gates on ludicrous mode with glow PLA high speed. Crazy how fast this thing moves. I've been meaning to do that. I still haven't run mine all the way up to crazy speed. Ryan says, when Emergent RC was at their peak, FPV was the best. I keep my original circular polarized Emergent RC antennas that came with, I reckon, V2 like trophies. Picture in general nonsense of the CX-10. Looks like they still sell it. Damn, that's crazy. And then should we do a memory lane flight at Castle Crash? All brushed / line of sight stuff. Oh my god. And then Capital C says, my first drone was an Eachine Racer 250. It's so funny, like so many people got into FPV from Eachine stuff. Eachine bind and flies. I've never had a single Eachine bind and fly. Because like I didn't just like buy stuff. I like looked at reviews and whatnot, and everybody would hammer the Eachine stuff in the reviews. So it was like, okay, I'm not buying that. But yeah, I'm one of the few people that didn't start FPV with a fucking Wizard or a Racer.
I think I want to get a Wizard and put modern electronics and modern Betaflight in it and just see exactly how bad it is.
Yeah, totally. Capital C says it was total garbage, and then Yafu says folding props. Oh my god, I still have loads of them. Something I just remembered exists on props. Quads. We use them a lot on efficient planes like gliders, low drag, long range planes, but they don't really see them on quads anymore. Yeah, I have. I think I have at least one set of all the different folding props that have been made. 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch, maybe even 2.5. They're buried in my collection, but yeah. Thanks for hanging, people. My name's Aaron Ciotti. Go to CiottiFPV.com to support me so that I can keep doing fun stuff like this. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Be good. Kevin Sumner, thank you as always for hanging out.
Welcome. Here
comes some more flying from my frame with the big old battery 854S and T3 by 1.6 by 3 props. Be good, friends. See you Wednesday.
Yeah. Out in the yard where the grass grows wild, CiottiFPV's goggles locked, grinning like a child. Teddy Spaghetti's, fur flies, and jet wash dreams. Yeah.
Chasing small whoops like a dog possessed fiend. Eyes on a neon blur, hard in the chase. Big fuzz and prop spin, all tangled in place. Yeah. Four-legged rebel with a rotor stir tail. In the circus of the sky, they never fail. CiottiFPV, Teddy sparking it. Dynamic duo kings barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed. They zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shotties on sticks, Teddy's on paws. Side by side, legends breaking all the laws. Through the kitchen, over couch scale terrain. Backyard mayhem in their flight domain. No ground too sacred, no loop too tight. Fuzz, fuel, fury ignites the night. When pilot and pup lock eyes on the prize, every whoop they conquer is a fresh cut surprise. Yeah, yo, Shotty behind the sticks, Teddy's leading the pack. Prop guard missiles unleashed, never looking back. No leash, no map, just freestyle mic. They on the dog drone streets every day and night. Said whoops, hitting low, gotta nail the dive. Teddy push throttle up, feel the beast come alive. I see the neon arc, got the sticks locked in. Teddy, yeah. Let's rip this loop, ride the roar of the wind. Teddy, yep, yeah. CiottiFPV, Teddy's spaghetti, diamond and duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed. Zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Teddy's spaghetti, Teddy and duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed. Zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah, when you hear that bar cut the rotor hum, you know Ciotti and Teddy's mission's just begun. FPV's fur-faced legends, legends singing loud. Yeah, Teddy spaghetti